Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined today by Pascha Cain, entrepreneur, investor, and realtor at the agency. So, Pascha, how are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be speaking with you today, Harris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine, and really excited to have you on and have a really interesting, amazing conversation. So, should we get straight into it?
Let's do it.
Amazing. So, Pasha, if you could start off telling us a little bit about your background and your journey and your upbringing, getting to the position you're in today, and a bit about what you're currently doing in terms of entrepreneurship, business, etc.
Wow. Okay. Yes, we'll keep it short. You don't want to know how old I am, so there is going to be some runway there. I am. Let's just start with I'm half Persian. My original name is Pasha Naderi Nejad. My father's Persian, so that really influenced me, obviously, in my life. I was born in Minnesota, but we moved to Iran when I was 8. So I got to be fully immersed in my formative years in a different culture, very different than the U.S., right? So those were my early years, and just learned different customs and cultures. We moved because of the revolution in 1978. My dad was very established as a film director in Iran, and he had an American wife, and it was very apparent we had to get out. So having that type of turmoil and a very, very, I think, monumentous disruption as a young child was pretty significant, especially when you're 8 years old. So you kind of upheaval your whole life, and you move to a new country, new everything. We coming to the US. Yes, I mean, we were excited, but yeah, it was very, somewhat traumatic. I always say we because I'm a twin. There's two of us. We had so we paralleled obviously our lives paralleled one another quite significantly. So my parents really didn't have a plan. Really, we had to leave. We had to leave pretty urgently. So they landed in Minnesota, where my grandma and family is, and just kind of developed a plan and realized, they wanted to come out to Oregon. And we just packed up a van and drove across the US all summer and knew we were going to move to Oregon. I mean, I think it's wild now because I have children. I'm like, I don't know if I would drive with a 7 and 8 year olds across the US, but they did it. My parents are a little bit of hippie generation. So landed in Oregon, and that's where I really called home. That's where I went from first grade all the way through high school, and I had Corvallis, where I grew up, as a very middle America community college town. So very safe, great. Yeah, just a great place to, I think, grow up. Not a lot of diversity, which was hard for me being half Persian, my father being Persian, because we definitely experienced some racism and whatnot there, but overall, very, very positive. So then I went to school at University of Oregon, and I've always had an itch for, I don't know, just thinking big, big visions, creative thinking. I've always been a left brain, right brain person, super like want to know the analytics about and understand the data, but also like take that data and really, apply it to a big story or vision. So I ended up in the journalism and advertising school at U of O, and was best decision ever. It really broadened my, insights to understanding consumers, understanding how to connect with them authentically, emotionally, through storytelling and through those different marketing tactics. So I was sold. I was completely sold. And it just kind of fed, I think, a passion I deeply had I just love, like, yeah, just anything that's illustrative and around design or creativity really feeds my soul. So we'll get to that, how that's kind of been a key theme in my life. So went to graduated from University of Oregon, and like most kids, really didn't know what I was going to do. I interned at some big ad agencies in LA and in Oregon, and in the summers I was firefighting. So that gave me a lot of grit and humility and yeah, just perseverance, because when you're fighting fires, it's definitely very strenuous, and it's a very male dominated world. So I learned how to stick out my elbows, being a only woman on a female crew.
Amazing.
So then after I got some internships out of the way and graduated from college, I landed at a couple different places, but I I always love sports. I've always been an athlete. And so Oregon, if you don't know, is a really big hub for the sporting good industry. So sportswear, so Nike is based here. The Adidas, the US headquarters is based here. And there's Columbia as well, which I don't know, it's a somewhat known internationally. And then Keen Footwear. So we just are this kind of real like breeding ground for sporting goods brands. And there's a reason, because there's so much talent here. So talent fosters, why they, other brands come here. So I just knocked on doors, and I was like, I love sports so much and I love marketing so much. How can I apply that? So I ended up getting a role at Adidas. And yeah, so I really started my career in the sporting good industry, at Adidas. And yeah, then I had an opportunity to go abroad, and I was engaged. So my husband and I got married one weekend, and the next weekend we moved to Germany. So we thought we would be in Germany for 2 years. And granted, my husband didn't even have a passport. So he was definitely the trooper, the one willing to go on the ride. And again, we thought we were only there 2 years. Like, we put everything in storage, and we'll say, we, said goodbye to friends and family for 2 years. And we packed everything up. And 10 years later, we moved back. So we spent 10 years in Europe, and we loved it. Like, the quality of life, the different cultures. And I think because I've always been exposed to different cultures, it really was a strong connection for me to live abroad. So we lived in Germany for about 2 years, and then I got recruited from Adidas to go to the Nike headquarters in the Netherlands. And so that's where we were close to 8 years, had 2 kids there. Yeah. And so, but when you have kids, it takes a village. And so after 8 years there, we realized, okay, it's time to go home, be closer to the village, do the grandparents. And I was lucky enough to get a pretty big role back at Adidas. I was head of originals for North America, which is the lifestyle division. And so it was just on fire. We had so much fun. We brought Kanye West to the brand. We had Pharrell, we had Rihanna. Like, we just did big things. It was so fun. And so really, again, kind of fed that creative, passion of mine of connecting with consumers, storytelling through product, through the execution of beautiful product. So it was amazing. We had a great team. Again, was really able to be entrepreneurial in those early years. And then it was, in about 2020, kind of when we were going into COVID, I kind of started feeling, it was kind of leading up to that. I always knew that it was getting, after 20 some years of kind of having the same kind of, you do season after season and season, and it just felt a little bit repetitive, and I could feel myself not as passionate about it anymore. I felt like this, like, just real sense of like enthusiasm, and just my mental health wasn't I could see it sliding. And of course then we had COVID. We had so much protests around Black Lives Matter, which was really hard because we are in Adidas. Our whole focus is the young Black American youth. And so we felt really guilty, and we're taking ownership for this movement. So there was a lot going on. And I don't know. One morning I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I need a change. So I took a leave of absence, and I never went back. I just knew I needed a new chapter in my life. I was traveling a lot. I wanted to spend more time with my kiddos. And I think we all kind of reflected a lot during COVID of what our values are. And I took that to heart. I was like, I'm not spending enough time with my family. So I would say real estate found me. I wasn't looking for real estate. I've always loved beautiful homes. We've owned a few different homes, but it wasn't on my radar at all. And I just, when I was taking that break, I just ended up in some investment groups and some women-only investment groups, and it just all clicked for me. I was just like, this is taking all my knowledge of marketing product and understanding the consumer and applying it to homes. Like, it is that art and science that I've been living and doing for so long, but putting it towards something that, wow, I can grow my own wealth and be in control of my own destiny. And I'm not working for somebody else and helping them grow their business. It's like growing my own business. And so it just totally all clicked in my head why this made so much sense. I have freedom of time, freedom of location. The goal is financial freedom, which we can talk to more in a second, but it's all was achievable with real estate. Really, really. So that's how yeah. And then I was giving so much commission to realtors. My mentor was just like, you need to get a license. And then I was like, yeah. And I love being a broker. I love helping people understand it's such a big emotional connection. So understanding what motivates them and how I can bring value. So I'm kind of multidimensional. I'm in new developments now. I'm an investor. I have buy and holds. I've done a lot of renovations. I did 9 renovations in almost 2 years. Wow. And then also a broker. I just feel like whatever your skill set is, whatever your interests, there's a home for you in real estate.
Absolutely. So. Very well said. What an amazing story and an absolute journey.
I told you it was long.
No, that's what we want. We want the detail, the ups and downs. And, I think that's the beauty of life, that there's no, it's a journey. You go through ups and downs and you learn lessons. And in the end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there? You find that beauty in life and you find that passion, and you're a testament to that. So I guess big congratulations on that, and a very beautiful story. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amazing. So Patrick, I guess just coming nicely onto the next topic now and getting your thoughts on industry trends. So what are some significant trends and shifts within the property real estate investing market have you seen? How do you think they're going to pan out in the next few months? And are you looking forward to them, or perhaps are you on the fearful side? What's your overall take?
Definitely not somebody who operates a fear-based mentality. I'm somebody who looks at the positive. I mean, it is chaotic right now. We're in this last week was one of the most tumultuous weeks since, who knows, since probably 2008 in the US market. So there is this level, there's 2 things going on. One, in our market, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, and this is why I would say pretty a national trend. Everybody is holding on to their 2 to 3% interest rates. There's really this fear of like letting go, and fair enough, because a lot of people, if they were to leave, they couldn't afford the house that they're living in today. And that's a real fear, and that's a real reality for a lot of people. Okay. So that is one reason why we're not seeing a lot of movement, is because people are locked in, they're handcuffed to these incredible interest rates. Another trend that we are right on the cusp of is the silver tsunami. Our 65-year-olds, there's a whole generation, the baby boomers and 65 and plus, who are going to be making huge lifestyle changes, right? They are either going to be downsizing. I mean, a lot of them are already in retirement or going to retirement, but more importantly, they can't live in the house that they currently have because it's not functional anymore. There's stairs. The bathroom is not really accessible. So these families are having to make decisions for their parents or for themselves because their house is not equipped for people aging anymore. So a couple things are happening. This group is like either adapting their houses, which could take a lot of work, or they're moving in with their offspring, daughters or sons. This multi-generational living is becoming widely normalized and popular. And so there's a lot of families looking for houses where they can, have their grandparent or their parents, grandparents. So yes, this silver tsunami is going to really change the market significantly. So people who are ahead of it, and it's happening right now. We're on really the cusp of it, but the next 5 to 8 years, there'll be an explosion. So you have one generation that's not moving because they don't want to move because of their interest rates. And then all of a sudden we're going to be seeing this huge flux of change with this other generation. With that said, life still happens.
Absolutely.
Get jobs, people have babies, so people move. So there's just situations where people have to move. So we do see quite a bit still, like we still see competitive bidding in our market. And that's why, really strategic pricing, the right marketing is really important. We see a lot of migration from other markets, specifically California, because people want to get out of fire zones, cost of living is high down there. So yeah, so the macro trends are definitely the silver tsunami and this handcuff effect of the low interest rates. And then, in the micro levels, there's a lot of interesting dynamics that affect each market specifically.
Absolutely. And how does somebody who's in the market or perhaps looking in, how does somebody navigate all these changing things that are happening with legislation, compliance, interest rates? Somebody like yourself who's trying to be successful and actually navigate, how does somebody adapt and, overcome these changing things that constantly happen? How do you stay on top of these? And actually, what makes somebody successful out in the vast ocean of people within the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I talk and think I'm immersed in it every day. So I'm surrounded by, discussion. I seek it out. I read articles. I go to conferences. I have mentors. I'm in the brokerage where people are sharing stories. So and it gets a little bit like you have to cut through the noise because there's a lot of noise and it'd be really easy to get paralyzed by all the concerns and negativity out there. The metrics show that we have actually already hit a slump and we're out of the downturn because there's just more pendings, there's more solds year to date than we had the previous year. So there's a lot of positivity, but it's hard to sometimes feel that. So to answer your question, I glean it from, because it's a natural interest of mine, talking about it all the time. Now, if my clients don't, and nor should they, I mean, sure, it's like everybody's aware what's the housing market and some of the challenges, but that's also my job and the lender's job to educate them. And that's where I would advise somebody, find a good advisor. Find an advisor who has your best interests in mind, that will help you if you need to sell a house, market it right, have the right pricing strategy, have the right timing strategy. It's becoming a lot more complex and serious because there's just more variables. There's more unknowns. It's not a safeguard as it used to be to like put a house on the market. Oh, just sell. So I would just say rely on knowledgeable people to help you keep abreast on what and be that filter of what's important and what's not.
Amazing. Very well said. Thank you for that, Pasha. And a big trend I wanted to get your thoughts on, and this trend has blown up in the last 10, 15 years, and is the power of social media. Social media is here to stay. It's only going to get even bigger. So what is your overall take on social media? Is social media a sort of system or strategy you're using to help grow and drive the business forward? And what are some ways people can actually use social media to benefit them? What is your overall take on social media?
Yeah, no, I'm fully immersed in it and as well as AI. Like I feel like every conference I've been into, those two are just the lead topics. And both is how we get information. It's social media, especially if you're building your own brand. If you're not on it, you're not a brand. And people want to see you. They want to see your expertise on social. They want to see your life. So you have to show up authentically. They want to be inspired. So you really need to like kind of really be clear of what you want to represent as a brand. And then how do you portray that on social so that you can really attract the right audience. The silver tsunami generation they're on Facebook, a very important tool for them or platform for them. So if you want to attract that generation, you have to be on Facebook, but everybody else is definitely using Instagram as a way to keep informed and keep in touch with family and friends. So it's not going anywhere. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's I think so many people are afraid to show their face on camera and people aren't judging that. People just want to know how you're doing and what you're up to and understand kind of like, let me say what Pascha stands for, and I need to do a better job of that because sometimes I'm like, I don't think I'm very clear, but that just is, I know that that's a powerful vehicle to shape my brand and build my brand identity.
Absolutely. And I think another sub trend off the back of social media is I've noticed recently a lot of people actually focusing on founder-led content, where instead of people promoting businesses and brands and investing so much in logos, people are actually starting to invest more in themselves now. Because I guess what people buy from people, right? People need to see who they're buying from and who they're building that connection with. So a lot of people now are actually coming out and providing value, creating content, perhaps doing a day in the life and showing people what's really in the happening and what they can expect when they do business with them. So is that a trend you've noticed? Is that something you've started to look into?
And like I mean, if you're over curated, people reject you. People don't want to see like corporate branded advertising. I mean, you need to pull back the curtain, and the more raw and real you are, the more you'll connect with audiences. People do not want to see perfection. So that whole curated look, those days are over. It really is about, yeah, being authentic. I was just at an amazing branding and marketing conference down in Dallas last week, and it was all about, like, one, knowing your intrinsic value. Like, you have to understand your why, and that is super unique and individual to you, but how do you also portray it? And people want to, and that's how they'll connect with you. They really feel like you're genuinely talking about your why or connecting with your why, because that's how they connect with you. People want to anchor themselves with other people who have similar values. That's really, I mean, that's how we feel connected. That's how we feel a community. And that is how the community is now. It's in a virtual forum.
Absolutely. And it's all about building that community around yourself and having that trust element. Because if you're able to build that trust and you're able to build that connection through the camera, it's half the job done. So when you meet somebody, they already know you, they know, your
Yes.
standards, and they know what you're about, rather than having to spend perhaps half the call trying to explain who you are, what you do. People already know you like a friend, and if a
Yes.
friend calls you,
Yes.
you're more likely to pick up than a stranger. So I think
Yes.
that's something social media's helped with as well. I'm not sure if you've noticed that.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Sometimes I'm like, I'll post something, like me and my kid having, going to a coffee shop, and 3 weeks later, somebody's like, "I love that coffee shop you went to," and I was just like, "Oh my God, you guys are watching!
They're tuned
People
in.
are watching!" You know?
It's like how you tune into your favorite TV show or episode of Friends. You kind of get engaged with that person, especially if they have your best interest at heart. They're providing value, they're educating you, they're kind of navigating you in the right way. You got no choice but to build that connection, and you kind of care what they're up to. And then when it comes down to business, they're more likely to trust you. So that's something when speaking to a lot of other business owners is starting to utilize a lot more. And I'm glad you kind of are seeing that in something you're doing already, which is great.
It's an important pillar of my business for sure in marketing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Pasha, I guess now talking more on the business side of things, honing now more on the business. What are some areas of the business that are going really well and going strength to strength? And what are some areas that you perhaps having some difficulty and some challenges? And how are you looking to overcome those particular challenges?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm involved in so many things. I would say my biggest challenge is trying to keep all of it streamlined. Involved in some development projects, but we want to do an acquisition of an RV storage unit and potentially develop that. My broker life is a full-time job. So I think one of my challenges is I'm a really impatient person. So I want them all to be like at 110% flourishing now. But, realize that we have to be systematic and methodical about how you grow those businesses. And what I've learned in real estate is if you rush it, or if you don't do your due diligence, you can get yourself in a hot mess very quickly. So to answer your question, I say what's going well is that, I mean, my broker, as being a realtor, like, that's going well. I have a clear positioning. I know my core client, my audience, who I want to target. I've spent a lot of time, like, I'm building that branding and what I want to represent to them. I would say that I have a short-term rental business that's going really well. It was very challenging at first because I had to systemize everything. So even though I'm not a big systems person, I appreciate it. So I really kind of leaned into, when you're an entrepreneur, you really have to lean into your weaknesses. So I really had to lean into my an operational side, which is not my go-to at all. I have a strong appreciation for operations, but it's not my go-to. It's definitely my Achilles heel. So, but I really buckled down and got my operations to perfection for my short-term rentals. And now I'm really seeing the benefits of that. I actually was just called yesterday by a television scout, and he wants to feature our house on one of his reality shows. So that was like, okay, that's good validation that I'm doing something right. And I'd say one of my also biggest challenges is just keeping the books. Like, I had somebody keeping the books, but it sounds weird, but there's too many mistakes, and it was really expensive, I think, for what I was getting. So I felt like, well, if I really want to understand the numbers and how my business is doing, I want to take over the books. Again, not my strength, but I also know that to be where I want to go, I have to get out of the weeds. And you really have to find your kind of support team so that you can elevate yourself. And I mean, I know that from my whole business career, like I was as good as my team. And right now, I think my challenge is too far into the weeds. And I'm not a weed person. That's the other thing. I'm not really a good detail person, but I think it's been good for me to know the weeds so that I can know how to get these businesses really rolling. My goal is definitely to start putting in teams to support me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Amazing. Thank you very much. I guess, Pasha, now talking about the future. So what does the future look like for yourself and the business? What are some goals on the vision board? What does the next 6 to 12 months look like for yourself, and how are you planning to achieve those goals?
I love it. I love it. So this kind of goes full circle. What I said earlier, being an entrepreneur, my main objective was financial, financial freedom, freedom of location, freedom of time. Definitely, like for me, financial freedom is a big goal. And I know like real estate, and there's all data that shows like 90% of people who have wealth, it comes through real estate. So acquisition. And I'm starting late in life. Like if I was to give my younger self advice, I'd be like, invest in real estate. So we do have a more accelerated business model to build this passive income, because by the time my kids are out of high school, which is about 5-6 years, we want my husband to be leaving his W-2 job, which is he's in corporate right now, and we want to be living abroad again. So we want to be able to go back to Europe and again go full circle, live part-time in Europe and be financially free and have freedom of location and time.
Amazing.
We have I mean, we're hitting our yearly goals for sure. And also I want to say, like, there's no way Pasha from Adidas and Nike in 2020 would be where I'm at without coaching, development. I've invested like college course education into getting myself to the point where I'm at now. And that'd be like my advice is like read a ton, but also mentors, coaches, programs. Like you have to invest in yourself if that is your goal. And if you want to accelerate your goals, there's no way I would be able to have gotten or done what I've done without that type of support.
Amazing. Amazing. I guess that touches nicely onto my next question. What is the biggest piece of advice you received, or the biggest lesson you had to learn the hard way in your journey to entrepreneurship and, becoming successful?
Know myself. I think sadly for so many years I was wearing a mask or trying to be somebody I wasn't, because that's what I was told to do. And especially being a woman in a very male dominated industry, you see the type of personalities that were rewarded. And so you conform. And I think that's also why I think I started sliding down, because I just wasn't true to myself. So just own your strengths, own who you are. There's only one of you in the world. I know sounds a little cheesy, but the more that you lean into who you are, the more successful you be. And I wish I would have owned that more when I was younger, and it's still a journey for me. But I know the more that I step into my truth, the more powerful I am.
Amazing, amazing. That's beautiful. Pasha, thank you very much. I've really, really enjoyed myself. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. And I'm sure everyone listening at home has really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
community. I'm
Not
humbled to be on this. I feel, yeah, I'm sure
ama-
you have amazing people, and I just honored to be in your sphere.
Absolutely. Well, any closing comments from yourself, Pasha? Obviously, we'll put social medias and everything in the description, but any closing comments for anyone
Yeah, I
listening?
would just say, like, I am about pay it forward. I've had a lot of people help me. I would love to have any conversations about anything I discuss. Leaving corporate, it's scary. Moving abroad, it's scary. Getting into real estate, talk about kids. I don't know, but I'm happy to be a resource for anybody. So please reach out.
Amazing. Well, Pasha, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in. And I guess we'll catch everyone next time. Thank you.